The night was velvet and endless, the kind that invited silence to speak. Sheikh Hamdan, the poet, the dreamer, the soul the world called Fazza, stood alone beneath a sky drenched in starlight. The city beneath him glittered with gold and ambition, yet his heart beat in a softer rhythm, one known only to those who have loved before the world understood their reason for loving. She had not yet become the muse that poems are written for, nor the name whispered by admirers. She existed quietly, wholly, within him. Before the world knew her, she had already taken residence in his soul. In those early days, she was not a face but a feeling, a warmth he could not name, a song that hummed through his chest like wind over dunes. He felt her presence in everything gentle, in the hush before dawn, in the curve of the falcon's flight, in the pulse of his own poetry. She was the reason his verses carried both longing and serenity. To others, he was a prince with words that could tame storms, but he knew his storms were only ever calmed by her imagined touch. Fazza had seen many faces, met countless souls, but hers, even before their meeting, existed beyond recognition. It was as though time itself had sculpted her essence into his heart long before she walked the earth. When she finally appeared, it was not a meeting, it was remembrance. He did not fall in love, he simply remembered where love had been waiting. She smiled, and every poem he had ever written suddenly had a face. She was not loud in her arrival. Her grace moved like the desert wind, quiet yet unstoppable. The world would have missed her subtlety, but not him. He noticed the language of her silence, the poetry between her pauses, the way her presence turned ordinary moments into sacred ones. And though he wore the titles of prince and poet, he felt humbled before her simplicity. She did not chase the light, she was the light, effortless and eternal. In his hidden devotion, Fazza built entire worlds for her within himself. He walked among his own verses like a pilgrim seeking her reflection. When his duties called him to the world's stage, he smiled as leaders do, but when the night returned, so did she, the invisible muse, the soft echo of everything he could never confess aloud. She lived in the spaces between his breaths, the gentle ache behind every line he penned. He feared the world would never understand. For them, love was spectacle, something to be seen, photographed, celebrated. But for him, love was a sanctuary. He guarded her memory like a sacred relic, hidden not out of shame but of reverence. To reveal her would be to diminish her, to let noise touch what was born in silence. She was not a secret, she was sacred. There were nights when he would wander the palace gardens, his mind heavy with verses that refused to sleep. The moon, his confidant, would listen as he whispered her name in the language of stars. Every palm tree, every ripple of water seemed to answer back. The world around him became a reflection of her, the roses her laughter, the breeze her whisper, the sky her smile. It was as if creation itself conspired to keep her alive within him. When dawn painted its gold across the desert, Fazza would write. The world thought his poems were imagination, metaphors, fantasy, but each word was a truth veiled in rhythm. His verses were confessions disguised as art. He spoke of a soul before the sunrise, a heart born of silence, a love that the wind remembers. Those who read his work felt beauty but not the ache. They saw words but not the woman who inspired them. She remained his unseen muse, dwelling quietly in the heart of his art. In time, the world began to recognize her. The woman who once lived only in his poetry became real to others, her presence now mirrored in photographs, her grace visible to countless eyes. Yet even as the world praised her, they did not know that she had always existed, long before cameras or crowds, in the private sanctum of a poet's soul. Fazza watched as she bloomed under the world's gaze, but in his heart, she remained untouched, eternally his first vision. There is a kind of love that thrives in silence, not because it is forbidden, but because it is infinite. His devotion was never an act of possession but of preservation. He loved her not for what she was to the world, but for what she was to him.
And yet, the heart that carries such devotion does not rest easily. Some nights, Fazza would feel her absence as a shadow pressed against his ribs, not painful, but profound. He understood now that love of this kind was not meant to be possessed, it was meant to be preserved. Still, memory can ache even when it is holy. He would look toward the horizon, where the desert met the dusk, and feel her there, not as loss, but as longing's gentlest form. Every whisper of wind seemed to murmur, "She is near, always near." The poet in him knew that stories must end, but love has no ending, only echoes. So, he began to write less for the page and more for the sky. His words became lighter, almost transparent, like smoke rising from prayer. He wrote not to be remembered but to remember. In every verse, he tucked away fragments of her spirit. A sigh, a silence, a smile. And though his poems reached millions, only he could hear the secret music hidden between their lines. The world read his work and called it art, he called it survival. As years drifted on, time tried to dull what it could not destroy. Seasons came and went, yet her essence lingered like perfume in the folds of eternity. She appeared in his dreams, never older, never farther, always luminous, always patient. "You kept me alive," her dream self would say, her voice as soft as light touching silk. And he would wake knowing she spoke the truth. Love that is lived in silence outlasts the noise of the world, it becomes the pulse beneath existence itself. The people of Dubai began to notice something unspoken in their prince's presence, a serenity, an otherworldly calm that radiated from him. They mistook it for wisdom, but it was love, distilled, refined, eternal. His hidden devotion had sculpted him into something greater than himself. He no longer sought to own beauty, he had become beauty's witness. To love and expect nothing in return, that was his crown, invisible but divine. One evening, as the sky folded itself into a tapestry of gold and indigo, Fazza stood upon the palace balcony once more.